What do you do?
Let's see here. First one that comes to mind is, I am a musician. I'm a classically trained pianist.
No
Not
kidding.
living in Austin, so I do pick up the guitar uh, quite frequently. There's a lot to be inspired by around there. So definitely spend some time around that. Been known to cook a thing or two and collect a little wine.
So I'm sorry. So you play the guitar, but originally your education was classical
Originally,
music?
yeah. I'm a classical pianist. Somewhere around high school, got into guitar a bit more. I mean, it was just kind of like the time when, early mid '90s, when a lot of people were playing the guitar.
Yeah. Well,
Never got any good at it. It was kind of funny. Found myself a few years ago. I had two guitars. One left behind by a housemate 10 years ago, and one that my brother left behind when we went to the army. And I had these two guitars. I'm playing one of them, and I was like, "Wait a second! I have a job. I could actually go and pick out like a real, guitar, not just like one that was left behind by a roommate or brother or whomever in the '90s." And it was pretty cathartic for me to think that I could just go into a guitar shop and pick one out. And all the ones that I dreamed of when I was a kid were quite affordable suddenly. So did that, and then fast forward about a year and a half, and I found myself in Austin. So I find that I was in San Francisco at the time. So it definitely it sucks you in. Before you know it, you're living in the music city.
yeah, most definitely. Listen, it was great to see you in Austin. That was one of those, you look familiar. What are you doing in Austin kind of thing? But beside that, Austin is amazing. It's needless to say, the music, and it's not only 6th Street, it continues to 4th Street.
Everywhere.
And yeah,
there's live bands at the airport.
I did not see that.
Yeah. Go through the TSA, take a left. There's live music there. It's a stage.
Usually when I pass the TSA, I usually go for, okay, where's the lounge? But I
that's what Salt Lick is. There's the barbecue there too.
Yeah, no, that's important. Who recommended that? I think it was Andrew. No, in Austin, to try black something barbecue.
Oh, there's Terry Black's. There's two Blacks. Terry Black. I can't remember the name of the other one. Yeah,
I think it was Terry Black when
Terry
you go
Black,
south of the
river.
river.
South of the lake. I mean, they call it a lake. The rest of us know it's a river.
It's a river. It's like it's. How is that even? Okay, never mind. Okay, so they call it a river. Huh? Learned something new today. Yeah. Now I remember when we were talking about the 90s, right? Teenager, long hair, and Nirvana, Metallica. That was the thing. Back then I had like an Ibanez and a Spanish guitar, and for 95 graduation, I tried to play tapping and distortion, the toccata. Toccata,
D minor.
D minor, exactly. I didn't really work, although it was a very, how can I say that, interesting experience, in front of the school, the parents and everything. It started very well. And from there,
the little staccato part.
And it's pure tapping here, and I remember I practiced that. Then I broke my hand. But long story short, again, that was like almost
Metallica album.
Yeah, it was almost like 30 years ago. Sad to say, but again,
what was your favorite Metallica album?
Sorry,
what was your favorite Metallica album?
Surprising, it was actually Metallica.
Really?
Yes, I loved Metallica because that was, I would say, almost also the easier to learn. But of course,
yes.
So I heard it so many times. Master of Puppets was great. Ride the Lightning was also had those moments, but I think that after Metallica, I didn't even hear any. I didn't really.
That was the gateway for so many people already.
Yeah.
Because that came out in '91. They just celebrated the 30th anniversary of that album coming out just a few months ago, and it was so many riffs. The first thing I ever picked up a guitar and played was the riff of Enter Sandman. Was the first thing because it's just like. And then I learned recently that I was fingering the thing wrong. So definitely the gateway. It came around to puppets. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So should we actually talk about insurance and stuff like that? Or
would you like to? All right.
Okay, let's talk about it. It's like, so great guitar, piano, guitar, classic,
Yeah, I can talk about Chopin and Rachmaninoff too, if you like, but let's go to insurance. Sounds good.
Well, Rachmaninoff will be too complicated for me. I wish I could talk about it, but it's beyond me, way, way, way beyond me. So how the hell did you get into insurance?
Oh, insurance. Well,
Yes.
I mean, I wasn't in love with insurance so much as I was in love with data. My background is computer science, AI, data platforms, things like that. And what I see in insurance is just a fantastic data problem. I studied AI, probability, stuff like that. And the actuarial science, of course, is a study of probability. What are the chances that this or that is going to happen? And then you back the whole thing by data platforms managing, managing users and risk and things like that, and categorizing it. And then the end result of it, what I found really satisfying aesthetically from an economic perspective, that the net result of it, of course, what insurance does is, the things we see on, television ads of helping the family when the branch falls in their house in a storm and things like that. And it's very important, cares for the people when they're at the most vulnerable. But from a business perspective, what it does is it takes otherwise complicated business operations and makes them, gives them financial boundaries, limits, so that if I need a package shipped from A to B, I can count on exactly the cost to do it. And if there's a problem, then it can compensate and so forth, as opposed to there being an asterisk. What's it going to cost me? Oh, it's going to cost this much, unless this. And then you wrap that one operation with two little asterisks next to it of if it's going to cost this much unless this happens. And that's one business operation. Well, to do anything significant business, you stack hundreds or thousands of them. So I think of insurance as kind of like, I think of it like a container ship. When you look at a container ship, you have these containers. Is it necessarily the most spatial efficient? That's not the point. The point is it takes arbitrarily sized things and makes them stackable, puts limits around it so that you can put them, you can line them up, and you can conduct business in ways that are efficient and contained. And people can know what they're going to get, because if anything happens outside the box, it's compensated for and so forth. And that's like it's such an aesthetically pleasing way to think of business, to think of the world where transactions can happen with limited risk. And when you think about the power of that, when I see a container ship, I think about the power of there being containers so things become stackable and so forth, other than just a heap of stuff. I feel like that's what's happening from a transaction perspective. But then also the technology side of it to make it all work. And what I saw in insurance is this really interesting economic and mathematical problem coupled with a technology problem that nobody had ever, frankly, built a good data model of an insurance policy. And behind every insurance company is a policy administration system, but no one had actually built a productized version of this. It turned out every single one of them was like a custom suit, which is great if you're buying a suit. But what you want is when you want uniformity and you want features and all the sorts of things that we buy software for in the first place, then what you want is you want a standard version where I buy a copy, you buy a copy, same copy, they upgrade together and so forth. And then you stack on top of that the cloud movement, you stack on top of that the movement towards open APIs, and there's some just amazing things happening there. And then, of course, I had a specific business opportunity for initial customers and expertise and so forth. And the thing came together.
So when we think about it, I usually use the analogy of a safety net. I love the fact that you're using the analogy of containers, because that makes a little bit more sense, especially if we think about the insurance companies. Like, yeah, we need to sell these products, but they need to fit, or whatever the risk that we need needs to fit in this container. It cannot be bigger. If we are not packing it correctly, basically we are underutilizing the risk that we get in. If we are pushing in something that doesn't really fit, well, we are going to sink.
And business operations aren't stackable because each one compound risks and corner cases and tail risks. all over the place, and it makes a mess. And to do any significantly complex business operation.
And for that, they have different size and colors of containers, and that's all about the policies that they sell. So
it's not about policies having colors, but
well, I don't know. Yeah, the colors doesn't really matter. For this analogy, it will be more about, for the marketing, so people can recognize, oh, that's container coming from that company. But if we are following this analogy and talking about the core system that you're providing, how do you fit in order to make those carriers? It's actually a carrier if we are using the shipping or the insurance company.
Yes, that's right.
There are carriers of containers.
They have capacity.
Oh, and they have capacity. Love it. I love this more and more by the second. So how's your solution as a core system? How do you support them and make them, I don't know, float better, have better capacity?
Let's see how far we can take this analogy.
Yeah. We're going with that.
Look at enterprise software. I'd say emerging, but it's emerged. If you go to some of the more tech forward industries, it has emerged. There's a new way to think about enterprise software. And the short version is best of breed wins. The era of calling one vendor and having them build everything does not work because the systems are just too complicated for any one vendor. So and now there's a best of breed has a bit of a bad rap for valid historical reasons. The reason it has a bad rap is insurers think of best of breed as hiring two vendors, and it's going to end up not working, and they're going to point fingers at each other.
Of course.
And yes, that's what happens when you hire two vendors and they're building custom software.
Oh, only two vendors, How about...
Or 20 vendors, exactly. But
let's hit a quick pause here and give sort of a background about core system, all the history overview, because it used to be IBM, then you have Guidewire, etc., etc. What's going on? What's the history?
Well, history is, these things start with mainframes. And it's amazing how so many of the tier ones you run into today are still running on mainframes. They're running code. They're selling policies today, and those policies are residing in systems that have been running nonstop since literally the 70s. And they're on mainframes. They're written in COBOL. They're hiring talented computer scientists out of university who know Python and JavaScript, and then showing them to their desk, giving them a COBOL book and saying, welcome to welcome to your new life. And invariably, they have 3 to 4 architects that have been around for a very long time. They're being bribed by ever larger sums of money to not retire, despite their family's best wishes and interests, because whenever something breaks, there's only 2 or 3 people in the whole organization that actually understand how the whole thing works. That's the old way. In a kind of a Duck Creek Guidewire era, it's brought it to, so it's still on it's on a PC now, still on-prem, but on at least a PC instead of a mainframe, still highly customized. Things are moving to the cloud. I should say that in air quotes, because what's happening a lot, so there's a lot of cloud. Cloud is often misunderstood in the following way. People think cloud, and very often what they mean is there are no servers in my building. Mm-hmm. That's what they're thinking of. And installing your on-premises software in a rented server in another building is not cloud. I like to say it's like there was a similar movement 100 years ago or more of people going away from factories, going away from having their own generators to using a grid. And if you were just put the generator in another building with an extension cord, that's not a grid. That just means you're renting the service, or it's just moved to another building. Analogous to the grid cloud, these are about a whole lot more than renting versus buying. I mean, if you use LinkedIn, Dropbox, Gmail, any of these sorts of things, you understand that this is something more than just being installed on a rented computer. It's continually upgrading. It has open APIs that everyone can use. It just works all the time. And it has transitioned from being a piece of software to being a utility, frankly, something that you can just plug in and use. And this is the new this is the new paradigm of enterprise software generally. This is not unique to insurance. This is what was, the trailblazers here, the pioneers here are the likes of AWS, of course, Twilio, Stripe. You think about what these are providing. They're providing infrastructures, very complicated infrastructures. Whereas, taking Stripe as an example, payments, that used to be part of, we had an early customer. So Socotra does not, we don't do policy. We do not pay payment processing.
Yeah.
And we had someone who's been around the industry quite a while, one of our early customers, kind of get in her face once and say, I've never heard of a policy administration system that doesn't come with payment processing. And, we didn't meet a standard for what should be in a policy administration system. But the truth is, why would you want us to create a payment processor? You've got Stripe, you've got Square, you've got a dozen others. Just pick one, use it. The APIs are right there. And so the enterprise of the future is an assembly of these truly off-the-shelf, true cloud, truly open components. And when I say off-the-shelf, that's another word that's tossed around. Pretty simple. If it's off-the-shelf, you can get you can get your account in 10 minutes. That does everything that the product provides. That's off-the-shelf. I see boxes behind you on the shelf. How long would it take you to hand me one of the boxes? If I were in the room, it'd take you about 30 seconds. How long would it take for me to hand you a Facebook account? How long would it take for me to hand you a Dropbox account? How long would it take for me to hand you a Gmail account? That's off-the-shelf. So that's the paradigm enterprise is moving towards. And then, of course, the differentiation is the combinations in which you connect them, the way you configure the components. And there will be some custom components on top of it, like your user experience. If you're consumer software, you're going to want to control every pixel of that customer experience. And perhaps behind the scenes are other things, but that's your differentiation.
So there is the infrastructure question, right? So moving from the on-prem, what is actually on-prem? Does it need to be here, or can it be in a data center somewhere else and it will be part of my VPN? Can it be the cloud, which is almost the same concept, hybrid, not hybrid, whatever you like to call it, because most of the insurance companies don't have a server farm at the first, or I don't know, in a basement number 2. They don't have it. It's somewhere else, right? But the question, I think that most people don't really understand the core systems or policy administration system, etc. What is the role? What is the core functionality that they provide?
Okay.
And then, we see more and more folks, I brought a Guidewire, they are the new, we call them the new legacy. That's then we have Duck Creek, Majesco. I'm naming a few of your competitors. Are they competitors, or it's because we see more and more that you have a few systems, a few core systems in the same company, pending the size of the company?
Mm-hmm. Oh, very few large insurers have one core system. I don't know if any of them actually do. Quite often they have one core system per product line. And
and then the experimental,
and then they've done acquisitions and so forth. It's a mess because
it's a mess.
Need to be maintained.
Yeah. So let's start from the basic. What is the basic functionality of a core system?
Yeah. So if I were to take it all the way down to the basics, it's this: where's the policy stored? Where's the data representation? You have an insurance policy. Where's the data representation of that policy stored? That system is usually responsible for generating quotes. Not always. Sometimes you could have a separate system for quotes. And then when they actually want to underwrite, it goes into the policy administration system. It can do quotes or not. Sometimes it does claims. Sometimes claims goes to a separate system. Some of the inescapable things are things like renewals, cancellations, policy changes, called endorsements in United States P&C speak, are a big component of that. So if I have a policy, I want to make a change to the policy. I want to quote the change to the policy. Okay, great. Now going to have this change. It's going to take place at some time in the future. Now I want to quote another change, and that second change I quote needs to take into account that change is going to occur some period before the already scheduled change, some period after. There's a lot of really complex things that need to happen, and then those all needs to turn into invoices. They'll have to be correct to the penny. Each of the invoices have to have different components for fees and for premiums that correspond to different covers within the policy. There may be ceded premium for reinsurance. And all of that just assumes that you have a policy that never, an insurance product, that never changes. As soon as there's changes to the insurance product, and then you're managing a product in 4 different versions side by side, and when you make a change to this policy, it is according to these rules because those were the rules at the time the policy was originally underwritten, even though the current rules that would pertain to a new policy underwritten today are different. The problems get complicated very, very rapidly. And this is something we see in InsurTech is very often you'll have a few entrepreneurs, very talented, lots of energy, who dive right into this. And sometimes they don't realize right away how deep the how deep the rabbit hole goes in terms of what it takes to actually administer a policy. Once you add underwritten.
And then you multiply it by 50 states, and you go like, holy shit!
Oh yeah. And then you can do one state at the end of all of that. You're doing one state exactly. So those are the sorts of things, and that's what we're passionate about. That's also why, as you alluded to, the conference we're doing on January 27th. That's what we're passionate about, creating community and dialogue around. So we are hosting Rethink Insurance in Palo Alto on January 27th.
Yeah, I was about to start that as its own topic, and give with all the trumpets and everything, and ask you, hey Dan, can we talk about Rethink Insurance and the conference that you're creating? That is it a conference, a summit? How do you define that?
Well, the heart of the conference isn't. It's not. We could have called the thing Socotra Con if we wanted to, but that's not really what it's about, because there's a bigger movement happening here. Mm-hmm. So we are sharing. Most of the time is not going to be. We're not going to be on the stage most of the time. We are having our partners on stage. We're having our customers on stage, and even for the period where we have several of our customers lined up, a mix of tier ones and InsurTechs, and I want them to present what they're doing that's innovative. They don't even have to talk. Actually, all I said is just show one block diagram at some point, and I want our logo in there. Other than that, the stage is yours. Talk about your innovation, because people can only listen to us for so long. They want to hear about other things that are going on and other innovations and so forth. And frankly, there's a broader movement happening that is so much bigger than Socotra. And this is the movement of modern enterprise, of components off the shelf, cloud that's real cloud, people actually publishing their APIs right on their websites so that any engineer can get licenses to a few things, or even better, get evaluation licenses before they even buy in the first place, and try them out. Rapid proof of concepts, and also things that are continually upgrading and improving.
Yeah, I think that 10 years ago, when I used to go and actually produce hackathons, it was all about the API. If it was
this isn't new.
Okay, and now, when I moved to and entered the insurance, so that was 7 years ago, maybe. It was, what the hell are we doing? Insurance, APIs, we don't have any APIs. No, and now we were talking about sort of, okay, it's open. Just, there you go. Here, you can access my data. Let's create a new flow. Let's talk about innovation. By the way, the innovation that you're talking about, are we talking about insurance product? Are we talking about technology, or all of the above?
Insurance product, absolutely. So we have customers doing all kinds of exciting things with products around cyber. Of course, a lot of our customers are doing auto, and then they're doing devices and apps and things like that. New distribution channels. Trying to think of some really innovative ones. I'd have to check with marketing which ones I'm allowed to talk about. But we're definitely going to be pushing it all the way to the edge. Everything we can talk about, we will definitely be talking about in January, and then of course talking about things that are coming and so forth. Talking about we'll give an update on Socotra Marketplace, which we outlined at ITC, which is frankly it's currently in beta. We're working with our partners, but thing works. Our partners are writing apps against it every day, and it is the ability to add components to your Socotra deployment and build up your enterprise literally as easily as installing an app on your phone or a browser extension.
Browser extension. So actually you're going to have Chrome extensions or plugins that will connect to can you share a use case or something?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm saying as it connects as easily as a browser extension.
Okay. Sorry. I missed that part.
Socotra, I want a payment provider. Okay. Which payment provider would I like? I want that one. Go.
Yeah.
Spin it up. Cool. And then, a few questions, but the questions are all graphical. Like, okay, give me your account login for both of the two of these, and answer maybe 4 questions and those sorts of things. Because that's the future of the enterprise, is be able to connect things together, because things are made to connect. And I think modern things are made to connect. Old things were not. So publishing the APIs, yeah.
No, that's very interesting, and I'm very curious. So I'm involved now. I'm helping an insurance gig that they are trying to do. Not trying. They are actually doing something very similar on a meta level in terms of a marketplace for insurance applications. So the technology snippets and parts of different APIs, and so you can create a flow on an industry level, not just for a specific one. And it's always interesting because the ecosystem that you build, we've seen it with a couple of others that they have, you can build this plugin for our ecosystem. What's the difference, or how is your marketplace your ecosystem or plugins are going to be different? What is that extra value that you provide them?
The value is it's the ability to, so Socotra is the only policy administration system with open APIs. Go to the websites of any other one and find the APIs. Any one of the ones that you've given by name so far in this conversation, anyway. And the reason that they can't it's not because it's so secret and they're afraid someone's going to steal technology. It's not even because it's outdated and they're embarrassed, although it's kind of outdated and they perhaps should be. The reason the incumbents, the legacy players, can't publish their APIs is because there's no single API to publish. They made a custom version for this customer, a custom version for this customer, a custom version for this customer. They have their own custom APIs just for them, or add a parameter, changed a parameter, things like that. So just having a consistent API reduces by an order of magnitude the amount of work it takes to build an integration. A proper marketplace platform reduces it by another order of magnitude. Because if I want to connect 2 pieces of software, actually it's probably more than one order of magnitude and more than one order of magnitude. But if you want to connect 2 pieces of software, yes, you have to write the connector code. But there's so many other components involved. You actually have to host it somewhere. You have to deploy to it. You have to manage your configuration. You have to securely manage your credentials. It's going to produce log files. You have to monitor the thing. When you want to upgrade it, you have to somehow, bring up the new version, bring down the old one, and hopefully without interrupting anything. There's a whole pile of things that you need to do to write an integration that actually have nothing to do with the actual integration code itself. So what we've done is productize that component so you can supply just the integration code. And then Marketplace is just a library of these things. So, if you can use Marketplace without using the public Marketplace, and because a lot of our customers, they're connecting Socotra to internal systems, proprietary internal systems, or maybe obscure data sources that only pertain to one specific insurance product, things like that. So to say, hey, we ship out of the box with these 10 integrations, it doesn't do any good to them if they're trying to integrate us with something custom and internal to them. So our philosophy is to make it as easy as possible to make additional integrations. And then, of course, along the way, let's create a library of them. And that's what Marketplace is.
And the library is super important, especially if you want to build the flows. And so there will be, I would say, more creativity. So we'll have more building bricks to create that whatever the suite of services that you want to create.
Yeah, It's very exciting. And there's lots of precedent here. You look at the way AWS does it. Look at the way Salesforce does it. We're just bringing it to insurance because this industry is too big and too important and frankly too data-driven not to have that kind of infrastructure available. And that's our mission. That's what gets me up every day. Here's the problem. People think that the siloing is happening for business reasons. And I mean, there are business reasons and so forth.
I think it's political reasons, but
and political reasons, that's fine. But the problem, but what I'm saying is when I have a large organization and I say, I want the people over there to use the data over there. Just saying that doesn't make it happen.
Yes.
And people think that they can do these back of envelope data architectures. And, I'm going to grab the data here and then grab this data feed here and connect it with social over here. And just because I can imagine it, it must exist. And that's great. But I can imagine a bridge. That doesn't mean the bridge exists. There's a lot of actual work. The thing actually has to be built. There are actual infrastructures. And I think in software, people have a tendency to think that if I can imagine something, someone must have created it. And sometimes there's things that people can readily imagine that are straightforward things that you can imagine should exist. And then it turns out no one's actually built it. And there's a lot of business to be done actually creating the things that most people think are already solved problems, but it turns out they're not. And policy administration is just, it's a gnarly problem that people like to think because they can imagine it, there must be several good ones out there.
Of course. That's how it works. And the best analogy beside the containers.
Yeah.
I
heard an anecdote from Peter Thiel told me once. He was talking about the Chicago School of Economics, known for the believing in inefficient markets, believing markets are perfectly efficient. And the joke goes that you could go to the Chicago School of Economics and drop a $20 bill on the ground. Come back a week later, it will still be there. Because everybody who walks by and sees it will think, if that were a real $20 bill, someone would have picked it up by now. And there's a lot of business to be made sometimes in picking up the $20 bill.
Seriously? No, is that a joke or is that like...
That's a joke.
Okay, just making sure, because somehow...
But everyone there, what the Chicago School of Economics is known for is believing in efficient markets, believing in efficient markets, not inefficient. Believing in if the markets are efficient, like all possible human knowledge is factored into the price of oil and every currency and every stock price. Everything's priced in, perfectly efficient. Everything's priced in. If you have an idea, well, someone else must have had that idea and it must already be priced in. And the point as it pertains here is there are certain infrastructures that just people assume exist, and it turns out they don't exist. No one's written a good one. Because when you go to conferences, people are talking about AI and blockchain and all these things that are way up here in the tech stack. Mm-hmm. And they don't talk about the fundamentals of how the data are actually organized and stored and shared and exchanged and represented and how things connect to other things and so forth. Because it's less interesting. It's less interesting to talk about blockchain. That's certainly the case. But it's needed. It's absolutely needed.
What's your connection to Peter Thiel?
He Founder Fund's angel fund led a seed round of ours. Some of our very first money was led by them.
Okay.
Then, previously, I was at Palantir, Peter Thiel's co-founder and chairman, I believe, certainly on the board to this day.
So how from that experience, being part of the Palo Alto, let's even call it elite, which it is, and I know I'm going back to one of the first questions. How did you find yourself in insurance?
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to my previous experience, I'm passionate about data platforms, and I'm passionate about seeing data representation, seeing data properly represented with proper APIs in cloud infrastructure that's always working, so it has a utility-like aspect. Mm-hmm. And I fundamentally believe that every industry is going to be turned upside down by data. And read Mark Andreessen's Software Gets the World essay, which is now, the essay is probably 10 years old now. It's still playing out. It'll be playing out for another decade or two, whereby data is a mess everywhere you look. And when I'm looking at before I even thought about insurance, I'm looking at different places, the need of data platforms. And if your background is data platforms and you're passionate about data platforms, the world is just a candy store of problems that you could solve. You look around, you're like, my gosh, that's how shipping logistics works. That's insane. Wow, that's how supply chain management works. That's how portfolio management works. How patent portfolio management works. All these sorts of things. Like, it's hard to find a data platform that isn't a mess. It certainly was the case in 2012, 2013, when I was really thinking hard about this, let alone like medical records, which is probably the most profound data storage and representation problem out there. And I found in insurance a really, really important data representation platform problem that nobody who with experience in data platforms was thinking about. I mean, a lot of them are thinking about banking. Certainly, and then of course, entertainment and advertisement is where the
most of the money in transactions,
technology is, and so forth. Yeah. So, and then of course, it came down to a specific opportunity. There's a private equity firm that was doing a roll up and needed software, and they had raised a significant amount of money and was starting to buy insurance companies, and just assumed we're going to give them the best software, and then did that, research the software and that was available, and they look at the first one. Oh, this looks pretty good. Looked at the website, talked to them. It's like, we try the software, and it turns out, they're really just consultants selling custom software. There's nothing to evaluate. There's no documentation to look at. You have to be in 4 meetings before they'll even tell you a price range. And okay, well, that must be a one-off. Then they go to the next one, the next one, the next one. And it turned out every single one of the policy administration system providers were consultants selling custom software. And they thought this is a darn conspiracy. How on earth could this be the case? And I was, got connected with them, and I couldn't believe that. I knew the software would be outdated. I knew that it'd be outdated. I knew it'd be written in old programming languages. It would not be in the cloud. API documentation would be bad. I knew that. I knew that would have to be the case. What I wasn't prepared for was that none of them were even productized. There was not a product on the market. There's not a single policy administration system, when I was looking at this in 2014, where an insurer could just request an eval license and some docs and try it out. I was like, this is insane. In 1985, I could have gotten an eval license from Oracle and tried it out. Now, I had to be technical to do it, but I could have done it because Oracle's database is a product. And it turns out none of those incumbents are actually selling products.
We can take this. I'm just thinking about you opened so many different points here that I wonder which path or which rabbit hole we should choose to follow, because I would really like to talk about, where you're standing in terms of the company, with your relationship to the different, very known names and venture capitalists, where you're standing and where you're going. But before that, I don't get the fact that, you need to have 4 meetings before you can hear a price. There is so much suspicion, and I don't know if it's misguided pricing or that's like, oh my God, you cannot talk how much we quoted you on services and solutions in the insurance industry. It seems to me, and there are a few companies that still have 80% of the market and dropping, and they are still like, no, price is one of our secrets, business secrets, and we cannot talk about it, which is, it's just flabbergasting. I don't know if that's even the right word for that.
Well, the pricing is just an example. I mean, and it's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is it's surprisingly hard. I challenge anyone looking at, it's surprisingly hard to go to the website of any policy administration system, except for Socotra, of course, actually figure out what it actually does. Mm-hmm. Find something where it writes about what it actually does. You're going to talk about how it's the thing of the future, and it's going to make you go faster.
It's connecting. Great. And you can roll out products.
What is the thing you're actually selling? If I'm going to go to the website of a place, a car manufacturer, I'm actually going to see a picture of the car. It's going to talk about the car. It's going to list the features of the car. It seems like an appropriate thing to have on the website of a product company if they're actually product companies. I find that much more alarming than pricing.
And don't forget how many actually people you need to hire in order to integrate it. How long is going to be an integration? How long does it take? Or what is the effort to launch a product or any information?
Yeah. This is part of why public documentation is so important. So public documentation, when I say public, I just mean publishing your APIs on your website. Just like I mean, I mentioned Twilio, Stripe, and AWS, of course, Google and Microsoft. But I mean, like literally, we created a slide for a presentation I gave at ITC. We put a whole just smattering of logos of companies where you can go right on the website and get their, like SpaceX is up there. You can go to the APIs for SpaceX to those satellites have APIs and they're public. I mean, if you happen to have to log in for a satellite, you can use it. But the point is that it's just so as soon as you walk out of the insurance industry to like any of these other companies you interact with, I mean, this is how a talented engineer in a weekend could make a piece of software where I can find all places that have pizza within 2 miles of me on Google Map APIs, and then cross-reference that over to Yelp to find the one with the biggest, highest rating, and then go over to DoorDash to its API and order one, and then use Twilio to send the person a text to say that with delivery instruction. I mean, this is how these things can get built so rapidly. It's enormously powerful, and thus far, the insurance industry has been excluded from this because the core system where the policy is represented doesn't have that.
Doesn't connect it. At the beginning, it was at the best you can get a quote. Now maybe a bindable quote. Now maybe you can bind, and that's before we even talked about paying and connecting to the billing system and processing, or oh my God, an API with a transactional cost and how you process that. That's a little bit too much for one day.
It's a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Now I'm still trying to figure out.
It's going to change the way enterprises work. It's like it's done in other industries. Like the use case I talked about, how a kid on a weekend can make this, press a button and give me the highest rated pizza delivered to my door app. That's the power of what's coming, and that's what's going to be coming to the enterprises, the back end systems within these insurers, and the ones that embrace it sooner rather than later are going to profit enormously, both in their ability to launch new and innovative products quickly and iterate on them. And of course, and their ability to greatly reduce expenses, which of course, in the economic climate, the combined ratio is everything.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, it's like, okay, how do I get a Swagger file for the satellite API? And from there, you create this parametric insurance once you have, some sort of a trigger, and then that's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's very cool. And someone's got to step up and write the policy administration component of the rich mosaic of all the modern cloud-based, best-of-breed, ready enterprise components out there. And that's our mission after we're done.
So going back to Socotra, how long have you been when did you start the company? Or how long have you been in operation?
14. So we've been around for a while, 2014, yes.
Okay. How much money did you raise so far?
We raised $45 million so far.
That's it. Actually, it's not that's it. But when you think about $45 million for a core system and the process and what we've seen, that's very efficient. How many people on the team?
We're around 85 right now. We started the year. All told, we will have more than doubled in 2021.
Wow.
I think we started the year at 44, and I think we are going to clear 88 by the end of the year. So we got a few starting tomorrow.
Congratulations. Just before the New Year's.
Indeed.
Yeah, so we are recording that in the week between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Most likely this will be the first episode in 2022. So
yes.
That will be great.
I should note, yes. Being recorded on December 27th.
Yes. So people will get a better feeling where we at in our timeline. Well, that's fantastic. Cool. Anything else that you want to touch and talk about?
I don't think so. And we're going to edit, so I get to think for a moment.
Yeah, of course. That's the idea. What are the
I think
investors?
oh, so no. I think the only other thing to give you a second for good editing. I think the only other thing to touch on is reiterate that for those who agree with us on where the industry needs to go, where enterprise software is going, about cloud, open APIs, and so forth, we are hosting our conference on January 27th. And it will be a large collection of forward-thinking insurers, partners of ours, working with us in the ecosystem who think the similar ways that we do, system integrator partners, other technologies, and so forth. And the theme is really around the enterprise architecture of the future, this things plugging together, a celebration of open APIs, true cloud, and the innovations that can come from that.
And
so,
I'm going to be there.
Looking forward to seeing you there as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I already checked. It's only 25 minutes from San Jose Airport, which that's the recommended, and unless you really want to land in SFO or drive from there. That's going to be very exciting. Now, let me ask you the last question that I'm asking everyone who comes to the podcast. Please give us a recommendation, a life hack, something that you picked up in the past, almost 2 years since COVID.
Yeah, so I think during COVID, I really doubled down. Frankly, I doubled down on health quite a bit. So it got a lot easier when I wasn't going out as much. So I was able to. I'd never counted macros before. Got on that wagon, and it made a surprising difference. I learned like how mathematical it can be that eat this, achieve this body shape, and so forth. Then I also built the home gym because I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't go out to my regular gym, and I guess you could say that what they've been telling me my whole life in terms of what to eat and how much to exercise, I finally took them up on it, and it turns out they were right.
Also, I think that in that, I got into the chemistry that goes in the body. So not every calorie is the same thing. There is even within, we like to talk about sugars or sucrose, fructose, and great. And now I forget.
Carbs, protein being the big ones. And of course, you got fiber and sugar, alcohol.
But it's more about the type of the molecules of the sugars and where each one of them is being digested, if it's in the liver or other location, and when, because what type of enzymes or hormones you need to within the body, and then of course what type of exercise. So it's actually it's.
And then have you done fasting? Intermittent fasting and things like that.
Yeah, I experimented with that as well.
So I kicked off a couple of years ago, and my trainer just had me start with a 36-hour fast. I thought I was going to die. I mean, I'm sorry. I thought going into it, someone said, "Oh, you're going to not eat for 36 hours." I thought I was going to die. It turns out that this was a fantastic discovery, is that when you're fasting, you're not any more hungry than any other time. In fact, you're probably less hungry, because you get hungry when your body's like, you eat, stop. If it's just stop, then I was amazed at how not hungry I was. So now I do a 36-hour fast once a month. I do 2 18s a week, and then I'll do like a 50-some hour one like once a year. Do kick off the new year with it.
That's impressive. I did a 16-8 for a couple of weeks, kept that, and then 4 weeks there, 2 weeks there, from time to time play with that. I did not do 24 hours or the 36. I like to eat. I really enjoy eating.
But that's the last thing that people don't understand when I describe this. They think I'm doing it so that I could be super thin, which is really would be cool too.
Actually, you appreciate the food more.
The reason is it's so that when you do eat, you can eat. You can have that much more.
You can eat more.
I am having the wine party and 5 courses.
And you cherish it, and you pick the best quality.
36-hour fast earlier in the week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think that we are good with all the recommendations and other information for everyone. We already reached 50 minutes, so past 15, but that's fine. It's also good. Fantastic. Dan,
fantastic.
Thank you very much for joining me today. Have a Happy New Year.
Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to seeing you on the 27th.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.